People are taking more pictures now than ever before. Billions of them. But there's no slides, no prints, just data. Electronic dust. And years from now, when they dig us up, there won't be any pictures to find.
Recently, when I watched the film Kodachrome that this is from, it gave me an idea. I have a problem. I've been a photographer for over 10 years, but almost all of it is in a digital form. SSDs, SD cards, Facebook, stuff like that. But when I look back, it's pretty hard to, because again, digital files, you have so many. So, I'm going on a trip coming up. I want to make sure to capture all of it on physical medium. Before that, I have 3 tools. One is an old camera that you guys actually voted on for me to bring a couple months ago. The second and third thing are a notebook and a tiny printer made by Canon. I'll explain a little bit more as the video goes on, but right now, we have to get to the airport. So it's about 11 p.m. and my flight leaves tomorrow morning. I'm a little bit early. So I took a couple photos to commemorate the quiet evening, and I got ready to print my first shot. See, this little Canon printer has a really cool trick. Each shot taken has an adhesive back, so I can put it into my notebook directly, which allows me to mix my favorite thing, which is photography and video, with a bit more of a physical medium. I spent that night sleeping in the airport, and then the next morning, traveling down to Seattle. Once there, I met up with Alex and Matt. We got a rental car and headed to the hotel, where we would get an early morning tomorrow to see Seattle wake up. It was a special treat to see all of the vendors come out, setting up their shop for the day. There was a certain serenity. I've never seen Pike Place quiet like this. And so we found the perfect place to watch the sunrise, and then we explored Seattle. Seattle is a little bit special to me because in 2014, it was here that I got my first camera and started my photographic journey. And after 10 years, I finally returned to Seattle again. But instead of being the beginning of my photography journey, it's the beginning of a road trip. A road trip that would take us through beautiful mountains towards the interior. And as the day went on, it was mostly driving. That evening, we stopped around sunset to have some food and to stretch our legs. Finally followed by us driving to our hotel in the dark. That night, I started my new routine of printing out the photos, editing them, and writing in my notebook. Writing about my little experiences, throwing this and that in. And it really did feel more memorable. And it prepped me for the next day, which has a little bit more on the table. He said, before waking up in Idaho. In my head, Idaho is kind of where you end up when we're between 2 different places. No one says, I'm going to Idaho. People say, oh, you have a cousin in Idaho. But we ended up in Idaho. So we went for a little bit of a walk. I sat in the park and drew in my notebook until we decided to go for food, and this was really cool. This is a West Side Drive-In in Boise. It has this really, really cool 1960s-ish style, and the food was really good. They had this ice cream that actually looked like a potato. It was very surprising. You feel like you're gonna have a baked potato. Nope, ice cream. As we took off for another few hours of driving, Matt was kind enough to write a haiku about Boise, Idaho. Horizons of hills. Mountains surround the city. Still boring, it seems. And truthfully, most of that day was boring. It was driving along until I saw something out my window. I made a stop because I couldn't believe that this was just off the highway. The Devil's Wash Bowl, a local, gorgeous park featuring a giant ravine. It had birds in it, grass, a river running through, like an entire different ecosystem. And as we went on and prepared to head to the hotel, we didn't know that there was one more gorgeous view just after Salt Lake City.
It's the mass production of new speed marks by Britain's Lieutenant Colonel Goldie Gardner and his tiny MG racer, the Magic Midget. Into a car not much bigger than himself goes the 6
Over the years, so many people have left their mark on the salt here at Bonneville. Back in 1904, Henry Ford.
Bonneville Salt Flats are a hot rod paradise. 200 amateur drivers turn up with their homegrown speedsters for beauty, but they all answer to the name Hot Rod and all make the same beeline for fame and fortune. All make the same beeline for fame and fortune. Fame and fortune. The official drivers.
This has been a place since the 1930s that we've used to set land speed records. And here we are today, the Salt Flats outside of Utah, about an hour and a half. And there is something truly breathtaking about it. An ocean of salt. As you're driving along beside it, it almost looks like snow, wind blown to be flat. It is something that is astounding to see.
This is a magnificent place, often referred to as the eighth wonder of the world. What is so special about the Bonneville Salt Flats? Another aerial shot, and you can see that the pit crews and all the families have moved out here, making it quite a festive event.
At this point, it was pretty much time to drive back into town. Not much else happened in Salt Lake. We went to a Target that I still don't know if it was real. There was no music.
What's up?
That night, I threw the photo of us together in my notebook to remember the day and tucked in for an early morning to Vegas. One of my favorite things about road trips are all of the little spots that you can stop along the way. This was a random little, apparently very popular coffee shop in a nothing town. And it was so cool just to pull over and order drinks and see all the quirky area. It's stuff like this that really makes a road trip worth doing for me. But the day was mostly uneventful, except for gorgeous mountains on the way into Vegas. But if I'm honest, Vegas wasn't to my taste. And this image of me in Rainforest Cafe represents the vibe well. That said, the guys weren't really feeling it either, and we made a last-minute decision to book a very special hotel. Even though it meant, fresh the next morning, another several hours of driving. But as we were pulling in and the desert sun was low, it was obvious we made the right choice. This is under canvas. Basically fancy camping, but they provide a wood stove and fire pits, the whole caboodle. But at this point, Matt, Alex, and I sat in front of our tent and watched the sunset. And that night, we sat around the fire, ate, and reminisced about the trip and the different parts of it. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that happened that I didn't mention. That's just for us. And yeah, we made it to the Grand Canyon, the apex of the trip, the final destination. And it was alright. It was really cool. There was a big hole there, but yet I couldn't help feeling that somehow this was the least memorable part. Somehow the part that I remember was all the hours of driving together, of stupid jokes, of little restaurants. It was the fact that it was a road trip. That was the part that made this special. I guess the Grand Canyon was inside of us all along. But genuinely, the part that I remember was that last gas station after the Grand Canyon for some reason. There was a bunch of weird stuff inside. And oddly enough, that last night, I updated the notebook, put the photos in, and forgot about it. It wasn't until several months later that I spotted my notebook again and flipped through the pages. This is why I put it all in the notebook, because then I have something physically that I can pick up and look through the whole trip. And speaking of physical, I held one thing back. At the start, you'll remember that I brought my Leica with me, but I wanted to wait to show you the photos until I could see them. Because the thing about notebooks and film and all of it is that sometimes when our memory fails, these can be what we have to pick up the slack. Thank you for watching, and God bless.